In this episode of Thoughts from the Underground, I would like to share my thoughts about the Israeli Gaza October 7th situation. Um, from my perspective, and specifically as to the responsibility of why all of this happened. So I have, I believe, a great perspective because I was born and raised in Israel. Um, I was in the Israeli army in a non-combative role for about 3 years, and I lived in Israel until I was early 20s. At the same time, I'm also an American citizen, and I have lived in the U.S. Half most of my adult life, meaning I'm almost 50 now, so from my early 20s to my, I would say, mid 40s. And I am also an Austrian citizen since my grand, like my mother's parents came from this neck of the woods. And um, yeah, so I have lived in Vienna, Austria for a couple of years. And for the last couple of years, I've been living in Italy. Um, so I've been around the block once or twice, and I met people from many parts, many different parts of the world and the planet. Uh, while in the U.S., I lived in New York City. While in New York City, I lived in Queens. I lived in Brooklyn. I lived in Manhattan. Um, I also lived in L.A. And also in LA, I lived in different neighborhoods. I lived in Venice Beach, I lived in Koreatown, I lived in Woodland Hills, and I also lived in southern Florida. I lived in Miami, I lived in Sunny Isle, I lived in Fort Lauderdale. So I've been around. I'm not saying I'm the most well-traveled person on the planet, even though I traveled across Europe, I traveled across the U.S. I've just had a chance to meet many people from different cultures. Um, but when October 7th happened, obviously, as an Israeli citizen, I was shocked by the violence. And I think that's a normal reaction, regardless if you're an Israeli or not. I mean, that's not the point of this discussion, but anyway. And then I started doing what I can call an observation, which is I started just observing what's going on and what's happening. And since obviously I speak Hebrew and I read Hebrew, I was listening and reading to a lot of Israeli news outlets and opinions and so forth and websites. And since I obviously speak English, even though a bit broken, I also listen to many different news outlets and YouTube channels and so forth, and information from the web in English. And at the same time, since I also speak some German, and that was a great great opportunity to exercise some of my Germans and improve it, German ability and improve it. I read a lot of different uh, German outlets. Now, German is officially spoken in Germany, in Austria, and in Switzerland. I know there are some places where they also speak German in South America, I believe, and some places in Africa. But the majority of German-speaking people are in those three countries. I believe also Luxembourg and so forth. And South Tyrol has some German-speaking population. But anyway, so I just read and observed, and since uh, as a teenager, or even before that in school, I didn't really have a lot of friends, and I often was an observer, because when you're not a main participant in events and things that's happening, okay, you have to be there, so you observe. I mean, you can shut yourself completely, but you can also observe. And later on in life, I used to go alone to bars and drink a bit and sit also in restaurants. And I was not just, with my head in my phone. I was also observing, and through the years, it became kind of my personal sport, uh, to observe, to look at people, to look at society, to look at what people are doing, what people are saying, how they're acting, how they're reacting. And many times when you're looking from the side and you're not in the event, you can form sometimes a better opinion, since you're basically most of the time emotionally detached, and your energy is not being consumed by participation. So you can just sit, and it's a more passive. You can sit and just absorb what's happening and see, oh wow, this guy acted like that, and she said this, and he said that, and so forth, and look at the reaction and look what's happening. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say over here is, I did not, beyond like the shock and like wow, I did not really form an opinion until not so long ago. And by forming an opinion, I mean, it seems like many people in the world who have no idea like what's happening, they were really fast to form an opinion. And I mean fast, I mean boom, 2 days after, one day after, they were like on the streets, marching with flags and F the Jews and all that. And hey, whatever rocks your boat, you have the freedom. If you're lucky enough to live in a country that allows you to express your hate, then knock yourself out. I'm just saying, that was for me kind of like, wow. Like, I've been living in Italy now for 2 years. I do not really speak Italian, but I've been living here for 2 years. And I must say, I cannot, for the life of me, form an opinion about what's happening inside Italy or between Italy and, let's say, Albania. I have no idea. I cannot. I just don't have enough information. And the same I can say about Austria. I lived in Austria for a couple of years. Yes, I went to German. I took German classes, and I tried my best to read as much as I can in German and listen to news and TV and so forth, and kind of like integrate myself into what's happening. But and by the way, I'm doing that also right now. I'm reading some Austrian newspapers from both left and right, and up until now, I have no idea what's going on in Austria. Like, I have some vague idea. I know the main parties and so forth, but I cannot get into to the in and outs of what's happening over there. It's just I just don't know. I cannot form an opinion and say, hey, yeah, I can. If I'm a football fan, I can, yeah, but I can't really make form a real educated opinion because I don't have enough knowledge. I know left, I know right. Okay, I know the main parties, I know what's happening, but and and I can almost say the same. I mean, even though the U.S. it's just been I've been there just for so many years, then I can say, okay, I get it. But if I zoom in and I go into, let's say, what's happening between the Bloods and the Cribs in L.A., I I cannot form an opinion. I don't know what's happening over there. I don't know what they're fighting. I mean, I know what they're fighting because each one won, but I don't know the in and outs of the fight. I know why they're fighting because they want money and this is my territory and this is your territory. But I don't know like the nuances. I don't know what's happening inside the fight. I know they're just killing each other. And the same thing, let's say about the Bronx. And again, I'm not saying anything bad about those places. It's just like statistically, the Bronx has a lot of crime, and I'm sure there are a bunch of gangs over there fighting each other or whatever. What I'm trying to say is, I don't know what's happening locally inside the Bronx and why people are fighting and who are they fighting and how they're fighting. I cannot make an opinion. I cannot take a side. Now you're going to tell me you're a Blood or you're a Crip or I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I'm not involved. Even though I live there, I don't know. So that's why I was like, wow, it seems like a lot of people have a lot of opinions and not a lot of information. So I was like, okay, that was my first observation. And then I said, I cannot form an opinion because I haven't lived in Israel for over 20 years and I don't know what's going on over there. Like, I know better than most people who never lived there because I grew up over there, so I know the culture, I know the people, I know the conflict. I'm familiar with it. I went to the army, so and I was in a place where it's like a main commander, like the head commander of like many branches of the army. So I had an experience of getting to kind of like see those people and see how it worked, but I haven't been there for 20 years. I don't know what happened. Many things happened in the last 20 years in Israel. So I was like, listen, I cannot form an opinion. I just don't have enough information. And at this point, I started consuming information and trying to understand what's happening. And I was reading and listening and reading and listening. I mean, from the left, I kind of knew, and I admit that I did not read and listen a lot because I know what they're saying. They're saying that Netanyahu basically is the main cause of this problem and so forth, and he's guilty and blah blah blah. And, okay, but I was more interested in listening to the other side, and I have no. Yes, I had an emotional reaction, but I have no. I don't give a damn. Like, I'm not a leftist. I'm not a right. I'm in favor of myself. I'm not a football fan. I don't care, honestly. Those politicians, they don't care about me. They care about themselves. I don't care about them. I was just, again, trying to form an opinion. So, again, the first opinion I was able to form is that most people have no idea what they're talking about, but they seem to have a very solid and passionate opinion about what's happening. And at this point, I just want to say I am very happy for those people that now they can really express themselves. And what do I mean by that? I believe that many people, especially in the West, because in the Muslim countries they don't hide, they just, what you see is what you get. But I believe that for many people in the West, and please excuse my analogy over here, I believe that they were holding a big fart in their belly for many years and decades. And they could not release that fart because you can't make this fart in public. It might be, you can't. It's gonna be too stinky and it's gonna create too much noise. And people are gonna look at you and say, what the F? So many people from the left and from the right and from the center and from all walks of life. And I feel bad for those people. And that's why I'm saying I'm happy, kind of like, I mean, at least those people, you were able to release that big fart that you are keeping inside your belly. And you're like, wow, I can finally release all the gas that I have accumulated over the decades and say what I really want to say, is that I hate Jews. And now I have the opportunity to say that. I'm not saying me personally, I'm just saying those kind of people, that's what they wanted to say. Because I know YouTube and other platforms, AI is analyzing what I'm saying, and I'm going to get banned because I said that someone hates Jews. No, I'm just saying somebody else hates Jews. So I hope that kind of AI is not going to, the big brother is not going to stop me or block me for saying that. So back to my point is, I am kind of happy for those people. I mean, I'm not happy that this is what happened, but it's a byproduct, and not all byproducts are bad. Like when people go and mine for gold, so sometimes the byproduct for that is also some silver, and it's not bad. There are many byproducts to everything that happens. So I'm happy for them. You can finally release that fart out of your system, let it go, birth it, and I'm sure that many people feel much better now. They walk better, they can run better, they don't wake up feeling bloated. They can just say what they want and hate passionately every day. And I think for them, this is beautiful. Because let me tell you why. Love and hate are very similar emotions. And think about it. When you love someone, you think about them. When you love someone, you have emotions for them. You might want to be next to them. You might want to have physical contact with them. When you love someone, you miss them. When you love someone, they are the center of your life. Meaning you want to do something that is related to them. So you can say the same thing about hate. When you hate someone, you think about them a lot. Sometimes it can be an obsession. Just as with love. A lot of people are obsessed with love. And a lot of people are obsessed with hate. And they continually and compulsively think about the person they love or hate. And many times, when you love someone or you hate someone, you want to get physical with them. When you love them, maybe you want to get in a more positive contact with them. And when you hate someone, maybe you want to get in a more negative contact with that person. Like, let's say you wanna smack them in the face instead of kissing them. So what I'm saying is that maybe, I don't know, it's just an observation, maybe love and hate are very similar. And now all those people who hate and they could not materialize their hate can do that now. And they can go on all the social media platforms and all whatever TV and streets demonstrations and parties and go to the office and they can express themselves. And I think this is beautiful. I'm happy for you. You can now fart as much as you want and let your passionate hatred flow. So that's for that. And as for what happened in October 7th, after whatever, a couple of years that since this happened, almost maybe, I don't know, 2 years, maybe now it's August 25, whatever time that was, I came to a conclusion that, the one person who has done the most damage to the state of Israel, to Israelis worldwide, and to Jews worldwide is an Israeli Jew who has done the most damage in the last, I would say, maybe 70 years, or maybe even since the Holocaust. And what do I mean by that? Okay, in the Holocaust, millions of Jews, maybe 6, maybe more, million, have died. This is quite an historical fact that's been kind of documented. So I don't think I'm running any conspiracy theory over here. And that was not as a result of a Jewish person specifically. Maybe Jews had something to do with it prior, but this is a different discussion. I'm saying specifically the action of one person, one leader, since World War II, and I'm saying that without being left or right. I'm just saying it. Let's say I'm a Swiss citizen and I'm trying to form an opinion that is unbiased, and I believe that the person that made the most damage to Jews, Israelis, and the state of Israel since the Holocaust is Benjamin Netanyahu. And I'm not saying that because I hate him. I don't say that because I have an issue with him, because I don't. I'm just saying it based on observation. A cold observation. Because for the last, 15 years, whatever how many years he's been in power in Israel, he was in charge. He was the CEO. He was he was running the show. And I never once I've heard him and his supporters say, oh, look, he took credit and they took credit for all the great stuff that happened, quote unquote great. The beeper operation and this and Iran and all that kind of quote unquote good stuff for them that happened, positive stuff. They took credit. And they basically specifically credited him, Benjamin Netanyahu. And I never once heard him or his supporters on media channels or whatever saying But at the same time that he's responsible for all the good stuff that happened since the war started in Israel and Gaza, he's also one of the main people who is responsible for this shitstorm. And he blamed everybody, the army, the generals, the public, the media. It's everybody but him. And if this was a public traded company, he would have resigned, because he's the man in charge. If you're the man in charge and it hits the fan, then you gotta go. It doesn't matter, oh, it's not my fault, it's his fault. No, you're in charge. You're the man who needs to carry the responsibility. I mean, and I'm saying that regardless of the actions that, like specifically whatever actions he took prior to October 7th. I'm saying it in general. He needs to go. And he should have said, I effed up and I gotta go. And he didn't do it. Which leads me to a conclusion that he doesn't care. He only cares about power and money. And this guy is responsible for the most damage and killing of people, of Jewish people, since World War II. And he's responsible for letting this happen, for allowing Hamas to keep on receiving money, and he personally, by his proxies, allowed them to receive cash and so forth and so forth. So I don't care what's the in and out. The bottom line is that he is responsible and he should go. And I'm not saying that with hate, and I'm not saying that with love. I'm just saying it. The first thing that should have happened, that he should have gone, or he should have been kicked out, and someone else should have assumed the role. And that applies to him and all the people that were in charge in all the systems, government agencies and army at this point. I'm not sure that the replacement, and I'm actually believe that the replacement might not have been better, but that's not the case. Specifically, I believe that Benjamin Netanyahu made a very large damage to Jews, Israelis, and the state of Israel. And I'm saying it with no hate, with no passion, but based on an observation and information which I have collected in the last year and a half, 2 years, whatever that was, from a wide range of sources. So that's about it. That's my opinion, and I hope it will get resolved soon. Adios.